Hi Papercrafters, welcome to another Design with Joe video. I'm Joanne Rogers, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. So you need a couple things to make this card. You need your paper trimmer, you need a bone folder, and you also need to know need to have some liquid glue. Now I really like using liquid glue for this card because it has some pressure points on it that you don't want. If you use, one thing that doesn't work is snail. So snail, if you happen to have snail and use that as your double-sided adhesive, it is great, but it's not going to hold up to making this card. So you either want liquid glue, which I like because it gives me a little bit of time to move around and get my paper in exactly the right spot, or you can use tear and tape. Or if you do have the Seal Plus, that will work great too. If you currently do not subscribe to me on YouTube, I would love to get going doing YouTube lives, but I don't have quite enough subscribers. So head on over to Design with Joe at YouTube. You can find me there and subscribe. You'll always get all of my videos, and I'll be able to start doing videos and lives from YouTube. So this scrap of crumb cake is what we are going to stamp on, okay? So any old scrap size, well, has to fit your stamp. And then you also need, this is for the back, you need 2 pieces of Very Vanilla, and these pieces are 2 5/8 by 4 1/8. So we've got those. We're going to come back to those right at the end. Then we need, for the card we're making, we're going to use Cajun Craze. And this piece here is our actual card. And this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that's why it fits in a regular sized envelope. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'll show you where to score that in a minute. And then you need 2 pieces of designer paper. And these are the same size as those Very Vanilla, 2 5/8 by 4 1/8. And we're just going to put those aside for now. Then you also need another piece of Cajun Craze, and this is 2 by 4 1/2, and I'll tell you where to score that one. And then 2 little pieces of designer paper, and I'm using the same pattern as what I have on the back of my card, but you can use any pattern that you want. And then another piece of cardstock, and I am changing my color. You don't have to, but I'm changing my color to Mossy Meadow, and this is 1 1/2 by 6 1/2, and I'll tell you where to score that. And then I have a contrasting piece, but in the same color. So where does all this paper come from? Sorry, I should tell you the measurement first. This is 1 3/8 by 5 3/8. I'm just going to put that aside too. So this paper is out of the Harvest Meadow, and this is in the current holiday catalog, and this paper is great. So it's a little bit different maybe than you think of for fall. It's got some fall colors, but it doesn't have you don't see a lot of the burnt oranges and browns in here. It's a very soft palette for fall, but I have made some really beautiful cards with it, and I'll bet that you have seen all kinds of really beautiful cards with it. So we're going to make another beautiful card today with it. And we've done a few of these on my lives on my On Command Crafting on Tuesday nights in our VIPs group. So now let's tell you how to do some scoring here. So we're first of all going to score the large piece of paper, and we're going to use our trimmer. Make sure that it's in the screen here. And you're going to put it so that the long side is in your trimmer. Now, when you have your paper trimmer, there is a scoring blade that's sort of a taupey color, and then the cutting blade is a more darker brown. So get that cutting blade out of the way. We don't want it. And we're just going to score our card. So you're going to put the 5 1/2 length at the top, and we're going to score that at 2 3/4. So you're just going to move this, you can see here 1 inch, 2 inches, and then these are all the quarters here. So we're going to go to 2 3/4. We're going to butt this paper right up against this lip here. There's a good generous lip that you can butt that up against. Make sure it's in there secure. Make sure the guide is closed, and then you're going to score. So you can actually, if you have the current Stampin' Up! Trimmer, you can put some pressure on there because it's not a really deep blade, and it's going to give you a great score line. The second piece of Cajun Craze, you want to score in 3 places. So this is scored at 1/2 inch. So I'm going to move out to 1/2 inch here, and I'm going to close it up and score. And then I'm going to go to 2 1/4, so back over here to 2 1/4 and score. and then another 1/2 inch. So one really cool thing about this trimmer is that it has measurements on the right side of the channel as well. So this channel is where the actual scoring and cutting happens. So I'm going to use this side just to show you how to do it. So we are going to do this one at 4, but basically it's 1/2 inch. So we want these to match on both sides. So we've got 1/2 inch here and we want 1/2 inch on this side. So I take my paper to 1/2 inch, which just happens to be 4 out here. I think. Yes, it is. Okay, so you've got, if you were just having it placed here, you would have scored them at 1/2 inch, a 2 1/4, and 4 inches. But you can also use this other side when you have a smaller one. For the large one, or the long one, we are going to score this one at 1/2 inch on either end, which is 1/2 inch and 6. So let's go to 1/2 inch here. Okay, so what we're going to do first, I'm going to put this aside. We've got them scored. I'm ready to go with that. Let's do a little bit of stamping. So I'm just going to pull in my grid paper from my Stamparatus and that scrap of crumb cake. I have some of my early espresso ink. Just going to move these out of the way. And you might see that I have a whole bunch. I don't know if they're in the screen or not. Yeah, you can just see the tiny little tip there. We are going to do some blending with our Stampin' Blends. So you just want to ink up, and I'm going to use my blends with my early espresso ink rather than my memento ink. Now that stamp came from the Pretty Pumpkins, and this is a set that is current in the holiday catalog as well. I've used this for lots of things, and I love the words. The words are probably the favorite thing, but this here pumpkin was the one that drew me to the set to begin with. And it is just beautiful. And I've done quite a few cards, and we have one coming up in our Sketch and Stamp Club using this one. So what I have is I've got pumpkin pie, I have Cajun craze, and I have one, let me just see, did I move them? That's Cajun Craze, and I have a Calypso Coral right here, one of the dark ones. And then I have a light of the Old Olive, and I have my Mossy Meadow. So I'm going to mix and match my different colors a little bit. So when you are coloring with your Stampin' Blends, you're going to see that it comes through on the back. So you always want to be on a surface of some kind. And when you're coloring anything, whether it's with pencil crayons or with markers, you want to have upside down, underneath it, you want to have a little bit of a cushion. Okay. So the greens that I'm going to use, I'm going to start with my lightest green, and you can really tell when they are lined up like this that this one is the lightest. So I'm going to start with my lightest, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to color my leaf. Now I'm going to do this because I want to have a light and dark on my leaf, and I'm going to go with light. Now sometimes you'll see me and I color dark first. Today I'm coloring light first, just to show you that you can do both ways, and it's going to still give you a great result. So if you tend to color and you think, oh, I missed what she was saying and I did it wrong, don't worry, there's not really a wrong way. And that's what's great about paper crafting and why it is so forgiving. It is only paper, so if you make a mistake, you can always throw it in the trash, but I would bet you that it's still perfectly fine to be using for a card, because we are often way more critical than we need to be. So there is my Stampin' Blends. Now these have 2 ends, and I use the bullet tip end on that one because I'm coloring in a smaller area. I'm going to go in now, actually I'm going to go in with my darkest one now, and I'm going to go into these lines. So one of the great things about detailed stamps is that you have lines already put in there for you. Stampin' Up! Does that. And well, they do it because it gives so much more personality and reality to our stamps. So I'm going to go over the lines, and I'm just going to go in and do a tiny little bit on the edges, but not very much. And one of the things you all, I should mention, is when you are using other inks to stamp with and then color your blends, normally we always say you want to use your memento. And that's true, but you can use other ones. And when you do use other ones, just know that they may bleed a little bit more. And this will. I know that this will bleed just a little bit more. So now I'm going in with my light Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to color, but sort of all over, but I'm going to leave some of those really light green places alone. So I'm blending all three colors and using them for my leaves. Okay, so there's our leaves. We might do something to those after. Now we're going to start with this guy. So this guy here is going to be our pumpkin pie pumpkin. So I'm going to start with my light pumpkin pie for this one again. And then I'm going to go in with my dark. Now there's no magic to this. I could go in with my dark first, but I'm going to start with my light today, just because I feel like being contrary. So because this is a little bigger area than those leaves, I am going to go in with the brush tip of my marker. So now I'm going to go in with the bullet tip and add the details. So I'm going to come from the top, going to get my dark, and I'm going to create shading coming from the top around the leaf, just like there was light coming this way, and it's causing a shadow because it can't get past that leaf. And then it's going to shadow over here too. And I'm going to go down to the bottom and up on some of those lines. So again, Stampin' Up! Made it easy for us. So let's use those lines to add some of the darker color. Okay, so it just gives you a much more realistic looking pumpkin. Now I do want to go back in and I want to use my brush tip again and just go over those lines just to blend them in. And you notice that I didn't really color all over. I don't really care about it because I know that this is going to blend and look great once it's done. The paper that you use is important. I have found that crumb cake works really well for coloring with them. In fact, it was one of the very first papers that I used. We recommend the thick basic white, and it's even a little bit better than the thick, in my opinion, than the thick Very Vanilla. So here we have some, our pumpkins all done, and what we're going to do is cut them out. So the detailed pumpkin dies, these are the dies right here that go with the Pretty Pumpkin stamp set. And some of the dies are not meant for cutting out images, but this one right here will cut out this image perfectly. So you place that around, put washi tape or a small post-it note on it, which is what I'm using now, small post-it notes. So when I use a post-it note, I find that it never rips my paper. So you're gonna run that through your die cutting machine or your Stampin' Cut and Emboss or your Big Boss or Little Boss, whatever you call them, that's what you're gonna do with it. And then you're going to have one that looks like this. Now, this is a fairly important part in terms of you want to do, if you are stamping and going to do this card just like this, you want to do this now so it has a chance to set up. So what I've done is I want mine to be sitting on a label. So I've chosen this label from the Stitch So Sweetly, and I know lots of you have these labels because they've been around for quite a while. I'm going to cut this one out of our Cajun Craze, and I've already done that. So there it is there. Now what I want to do is I want to glue this on, and I'm going to put a good amount of glue. Now this is a brand new glue, first time I used it, so it's going to come out of here pretty good. So there is a hole there, so just try not, I'm going to avoid the very top only because I know the size of this is going to extend. So go ahead and just glue that down. I'm going to glue it, try and get it in the center, and the top is going to extend over the top of the label. And then we're going to set this aside and we're going to let it dry. So we're going to stamp the words on this piece of Designer Series paper, and we are going to use the Thinking Thanks and Peace and the Sending Thanks, which fits perfectly on here. And so when I have a small piece of paper like this and I'm going to stamp words, I don't want to waste my paper and perhaps get my stamping going upside down, well, not upside down, a little bit cockeyed or a little bit crooked. So I'm going to use my Stamparatus. I'm going to use Mossy Meadow And I'm going to use my Cajun Craze Stampin' Right marker. So Mossy Meadow first. So I have created a Stampin' Spot with my Mossy Meadow ink refill. These come uninked, 5 in a package. And then I create them because on here, it creates less mess. And I can just tap it right on top of my words. So this stamp is great because there's enough break in between the words and the image, which is a little sheaf of wheat, or a little sprig of wheat, I guess, that I can, with a little bit of being careful, get this all inked up, the words. And I'm going to use the brush tip of my marker, and I'm going to use it on its side, right on top here. Now you could use another little Stampin' Spot, that would work fine. But if you don't have it, and you have the marker, this is a great way to do it. Now your marker is going to come out lighter. Just know that you're probably going to need to do it a couple times. So go ahead and stamp that in place. I use a little paper towel or a Kleenex if you have it, so that you can just rub your hand a little easier on there. So that's not bad, but I want it just a little bit darker. So I'm going to ink up again. I like that a little bit better, a little bit darker, so that works. So I'm going to take that out. There we go. And I'm going to clean. Now this is why I cut my simple chamois in half. So I can just pull this out, bend it in half, and it's a lot easier to clean this with this than it is with the larger one. So you can try doing that too, and then put it in another one of these cases. So these cases come in handy a lot. Pull everything in that you already had. Now you could stamp on here if you want. You could put designer paper on there. It's totally up to you. Whatever you do, these are going to go on the back. Whatever you do, do it before, not afterwards. Even just a little strip of paper on one of them will work great. So I'm going to glue that down. Actually, maybe I should put it this way because that is the perfect size. I'm going to put it that way, and then I'm not going to waste paper and have to cut it off. And now I should have my silicone craft sheet. Let's do that. So you can easily, you know, it's so quick to add a final little personalized touch to something. Okay, so that we're going to leave for the back. So we're going to score this, guys. We have scored it in half, and we are just going to fold it on that score line, and we are going to firm that up with our bone folder. Okay, those pieces are going to go there. Pull in your other piece of Cajun Craze, and we're going to score along those ones. All our folds are going to go in the same direction. They're going to be mountain folds, meaning that it creates a little, like this way, a little mountain. Okay, so they all go in the same area. Just make sure that the tops are lined there, because that's fairly important when you get to putting the card together. Always give them a really crisp fold. So I'm going to glue these down. Here's where I like to use my liquid glue as well, because it gives me a chance, just in case I get a little bit crazy here, gives you a chance to move it around and make sure that it is aligned. So you have a score line here and here. Your paper is going to fit in between your score line. Okay, and it has a tiny little border, just a little tiny border. Now we're going to put our words down as well. So I'm going to put glue on the back of my words. And that's going to fit right in the middle of our green. And you're going to have a little tiny bit at the top and bottom and a tiny little bit before you get to that score line. Okay, so set that up and get that straight. Now we are going to fold. So here's how you can, see, it really doesn't matter. Before or after, it's going to give you the same effect, whatever is your personal preference. Now, here's a little trick for this particular card. Now, I'm going to let that, that glue is going to set up fairly well, but we want this to be sort of round. And right now, it's fairly stiff. So I am going to just take my bone folder, and I'm not pressing really hard. I'm giving just a little light bend, so that I get a curve in that front piece, okay? And I found that that works a little bit better. One other thing we have to do, this is why I wanted this to set up and glue, set up that glue. We need to we need to score this one in half. I'm lucky that I have a straight edge here and here. So that one, I'm just going to make sure wherever it ends up, it looks like it's fairly even here, because I can't really use the top of my lip for this one. I have to use just sort of my best guess. So hold that in place and then score it. Okay, so I'm going to fold that away, create another mountain fold, and then give it a nice crisp edge again. Okay, so there you go. So now we're going to put it all together, and we are basically done. Just a few little embellishments. So first thing, I'm using liquid glue. Again, you can use tear and tape. You just want something that's going to have a lot of lasting hold. Your snail, and I do have to say, some of the dollar store adhesives will not have lasting hold for you. So liquid glue there. Okay, make sure I'm the right side up. This is the bottom of this is going to be aligned with the bottom of your card, and you're going to match up this center with that center. Okay, so I'm going to hold it up, and what I found that's easiest, a little tip for me, is I hold it the other way to begin with. Line that up. Make sure I'm even with the bottom edge, and then I'm going to push in, whoops, moved it, push in this edge over here. I'm going to start with my right and place it down. And I found this is the easiest way for me, and it's not going to be as messy, and I'm not going to get glue all over my fingers. So make sure you don't move it from that line. Just press that other one in place too. So you need this to be right in line. That's really important. That's probably one of the most important parts of this card. And then it's going to pop out the other way. Okay. Now we're going to put this one on. This one, you don't want that line. What we want is it's going to go beyond. It's going to go out further than that one, and it's going to glue in place. Liquid glue, again, is your friend here. Liquid glue, it will just take seconds to set up. So don't let that a little bit of time scare you off. So I'm going to start, doesn't matter what side you start with. I start with the left side, it seems. Again, we're going to align the bottom of it with the bottom. Everything is aligned at the bottom here. And we're going to go right to the edge, right to the left edge, lining up the bottom, and hold that in place. And then go over to the right side, and I usually turn mine like I just did, and align the right side. So your liquid glue is going to allow you to move that around just a little bit, so you can lift it up and just make sure that it is all glued in the right place. Okay, right out to the edges. That's what you want to see when you're looking at it upside down. Now give that just a couple minutes, but I also want to glue this on here. So I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue along the bottom here, because I want it to stand up over top of that label. I'm going to flatten it out just a little bit so I can get in there, and I'm going to glue it in place. And again, I am sorry, I didn't tell you, I am lining this line up with this line right here. Okay, that's really important. And then I'm looking sort of to eyeball that it is straight. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to let that just dry a little bit, but we're pretty much done. Now we just need to decorate just a tiny, oh, I'm sorry, we're not done. We have to put our back pieces on, don't we? This is great. That will let that piece dry. Now, if you want to put back, if you have a piece that is light enough, you can write on it directly. This one I thought was a little dark, so we're going to put that piece on like that. Okay, so there's the back of your card where you're going to write. Here's the front of your card. And seeing that now I can actually do it because it's set up pretty good. Seeing as we put that little curve in there, it's going to stay curved really quite a lot easier than if you didn't. Pull in your Wink of Stella. And if you don't have one of these, you need one of these. So this is just going to give you a little bit of glimmer. And I'm just coloring right over top of my wheat. And if my wheat color, as you can see right there, it's a one way that you can color. So the Cajun Craze actually picks up and colors. I'm also going to go from here, and I'm going to go do my leaves. And then of course we need to have some bling. So we're going to have some champagne bling. Okay, so just decorate that up a little bit so it's got some glitz and some glam. This one is much simpler. So this one is almost exactly the same type of thing, but all I did is I stamped onto a piece of paper in white. This is using the wonderful paper that has gone right out of my head right now, Expressions in Ink. So it's got a really bright gold. This one is fun. This one here is a Christmas one. So this guy here is from the Sweet Stockings paper. And it's completely made from that paper. And then I just have my greeting that I stamped back here this time. So super cute card. And you can see that it lies flat and will fit perfectly in an envelope. Pick some of the designer paper that you used for the envelope flap. And I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you're going to get out and make something today for World Card Making Day. And when you do, post it in the comments so that we can all see it, because I want to see what everybody's going to be designing with this particular project, which is actually a lot simpler than I think everybody thought. Okay, everybody have an awesome day. We will see you again fairly soon on Tuesday night in the VI Peeps group, where we will do some more crafting. This time we're going to use a lot of punches. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.